Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Welcome. Just going to get the magic bell. And we'll begin by setting an aspiration, a way to invite our mind, like setting a destination of a journey, setting our mind on where we wish to end up, which is arguably already present. So for the sake of all beings, may we cultivate a wise mind, a loving, non-judgmental heart, and the clarity of seeing things as they truly are. Thank you. Well, what a delight. Welcome, everybody. We've got some beautiful beings joining us on Zoom, including some new friends, Sharon and Ian, and some long-term friends, Neil and Shelley and a few others. And welcome to all of you who I know like to watch on the YouTube live stream right now, hopefully with us live this evening, or given that it's a long weekend and you may be out and about, watching it on the replay. And thanks, as always, to Neil for his tech wizardry and his kindness to step forward tonight to make sure this could happen easily for everybody. My apologies for not meeting in person tonight. A couple things came up that made that a challenge this evening, but what a delight to be here with the reclining Buddha over my shoulder in my living room. So I want to begin this evening with a gentle sit, a bit of a guided meditation that will lead into the theme of the talk this evening. So without further ado, I'm going to ask wherever you are, however you are, to adjust your posture so that it's comfortable and supported and also upright. We're going to work with some guided practices around the heart, around loving kindness, around forgiveness for self. So you really here, you want to nurture the body as well as ask the body to be reasonably alert, sitting with a reasonably straight posture. And I'll give you what some of you are used to hearing me refer to as the pre-flight safety check. My dad was a pilot, a small plane pilot, flew seaplanes all around here on Vancouver Island, and he had a seaplane that was tied to the dock outside of our house. My dad was a fairly impatient fellow, not in a negative way at all, but he was a get things done kind of guy, rush through, get to the conclusion. And I remember as a small child being struck when I watched Dad before he would turn on the airplane engine, that he did this meticulous, careful, one would say mindful pre-flight safety check. He was very methodical. My usually rush ahead to the conclusion, Father, was step by step by steps in preparation to support the airplane and safety and well-being of passengers. And so it's a lovely thing to bring to our meditation practice. So often we kind of plop down and sit and begin to meditate. That's certainly better than not meditating at all. But I'll give you a few postural clues and supportive posture clues that I've been taught or have witnessed other wonderful wise beings teach over the years, and one or two that have real meaning for the quality of the meditation itself. So as simple as these are, I strongly encourage you to practice them tonight. And the first one, imagine dropping down from the ceiling or the sky, if you happen to be outside watching this, a golden thread, and it drops down and it attaches to the top of your head as though you're a marionette. And imagine that someone's on a winch and they're now starting to reel in that string or that thread. And so it literally pulls you up. And as you can see, because we're in pretty close-up view on screen, as I imagine, I literally become several centimeters taller as I pull up from the crown of the head, opening the crown of the head. And I want you to physically become taller and then gently relax back down. And now bringing attention to your shoulders, I invite you, and this isn't a stretch or a large movement, it's more like an invitation or an imagination, but I want you to gently, I'm going to mimic it a little bigger than I'd like you to do it, but gently move your shoulders up for you about 1 centimeter. Gently roll them back. Stick your chest out. Open up the heart center. And then allow those shoulders to melt back down. And then do that once more. Gently up, gently rolling back, and then melting back down. You may observe a sense of vulnerability. For some of us, we've been unintentionally hunching, perhaps holding our heart safe. And the simple act of raising and opening, you may find some sweetness, some loving feelings, some tearfulness, some vulnerability, even a little bit of anxiety, whatever it is, that's just lovely. Hold your own good heart. So stretching up, sinking down, shoulders up, gently rolling back and sliding down. And then to the belly. The camera isn't low enough, but I want you, if you're wearing trousers with a button or a snap the way I am, undo the button. If you're wearing yoga pants or stretchy pants, generally we wear the band across our belly button. I want you to tug that down low below the belly and let the belly fall open. And whether you have a very thin, wiry body style, a soft and curvy body style, your belly will fall open and you will look about 4 or 5 months pregnant. And that's a beautiful, it does all sorts of things. There's a lot of serotonin receptors in the gut. It does things for the meditation and for the softening of the mind. And many people don't take this advice. So they go, yeah, they hear it, but they don't actually let go. They don't actually adjust their trousers or let their belly fall open. But you're alone in the privacy of your home right now. No one's looking. See what happens when you let the belly go. As one of my teachers says, happy belly, happy mind. Stretching up, coming down, shoulders up, opening the heart, sliding down. Let the belly go. And checking in with your chin. It can be helpful, a little trick someone taught me along the way. Place a thumb gently, barely touching your chin. Don't move the thumb. Don't press on your chin. You're going to do the opposite. You're going to press on your thumb with the chin, pressing down, putting some real pressure on that thumb with the chin. And it's a way to encourage and remind the cervical spine, the neck, to lengthen, spaciousness, and then let go. Just checking in, whatever your habitual posture may be. Some of us jut their chins out. I tend to do that. Some of us tuck them in. And we want the spine open, the throat open. Stretching up from the crown, opening the heart, releasing the belly, checking in with the chin, and then imagine or physically place just a gentle Mona Lisa smile on your lips. Even imagining a slight curve to your lips changes the physiological biochemistry. And if you look at a Southeastern Buddha statue from Thailand, from Vietnam, that type of icon of the iconography of a Buddha has a very gentle smile, just a touch of a smile, as does the Buddha behind my shoulder this evening. This is very helpful for concentration practice. That slight smile. Advanced teaching for some of you is one way to help enter into the depth concentration practice of the first jhana, is when you're really disciplining the mind to be deeply concentrated. Sometimes adding the slight ease of a smile helps the mind drop in to that deep concentration. Pre-flight safety check for meditation. And then you can let that all fade away. We could write those steps up for you and send them out in the next newsletter. In fact, we'll do that, no problem. For now, just gently now settle into the body as it is right now. Maybe gently with a loving eye, inner eye, scan the body from the toes up to the crown of the head, just noticing any areas perhaps of tension. Maybe there are areas of physical discomfort. If there are any, sending a little loving kindness towards the knee or the belly or the shoulder or the neck. Just knowing the impermanence of this body means sometimes they are discomfort free, and other times we have discomfort, and this is part of the ebbs and flows of the way of things. Simply being, breathing, nowhere to go, nothing to do, just this. Scanning the body gently with a loving eye, sending some kindness, maybe some forgiveness to any parts of the body that are uncomfortable in this moment. Some kindness instead of the sort of angry recrimination we sometimes throw at our body. Why is my foot hurting again? Instead of, I'm sorry you're hurting, foot. I'm here for you. And then I'd like you to gently bring your attention. It's an invitation, inviting the intention to settle in the area of your heart center. You can take a look at the screen if you're unsure, but basically the solar plexus, the heart center. It may help, if it feels supportive, to place your palm on your heart center. This is optional. Pressing a little bit with the palm, the flesh of the flat palm, contacting the chest wall, enlivening some of the energetic centers in the heart center. And if you wish, you can place both palms there or leave one palm there. Or throughout this meditation, if you put your hand back in your lap, at any time, if the mind starts to drift or it would help to redirect that attention, you can place your palm back on the heart center. And for the next few moments, I invite each of us to focus on breathing into the heart on our inhale and breathing out from our heart on the exhale. Just this, breathing in to the heart center, breathing out from the heart center. And I invite you to imagine, if you will, a gentle, pale rose pink light. Rose petal pink. A small ball of glowing rose pink light floating in the heart center. Whatever size appears in your imagination is exactly right. Perhaps a ping pong ball size, perhaps the size of a small marble or a pea, perhaps a volleyball. Whatever it is, imagine this warm, healing, glowing, pale rose pink light, glowing in the heart center as though your body was made of crystal. It was a hollow crystal sculpture in the shape of you. And in the middle is a glowing light bulb, floating in space as a perfect sphere, radiating pale rose pink light. And on every in-breath, imagine breathing energy into that glowing light in the heart center. It glows even more brightly. And on the exhale, breathing out from that ball of rose pink light in the heart center. And on the exhale, it also glows more brightly. We'll practice together in that manner for a few moments, just imagining, visualizing, pretending that warm pink glowing light in the heart center. And focusing our attention there and on the act of simply breathing into and out from your own good heart. And I invite you to imagine, if you will, that the warm pink light starts to radiate throughout your entire body. Again, as though your body is a crystal sculpture in the shape of you. And the light starts to flood downward from the heart center, filling your whole torso with this warm, healing, pale pink light. Moving down through the lower torso, the belly, the pelvic area, moving down through the buttocks and thighs, knees, feet, toes. As you continue to simply breathe into the heart and out from the heart. So the illumination starts to spread to the sides and the back, filling the entire middle and upper torso with light. Moving up through and over the shoulders. Flooding down through your arms, filling up the fingers and thumbs like your arms were long rubber gloves, and we're pouring this liquid light into them. Filling up the fingers, the thumbs, the palms, the backs of the hands, the wrists, elbows, upper arms, and then the light floods upward through the column of the neck and throat, through the chin and the face, the ears, nose, teeth, lips, tongue, the entire scalp, the face, the head, each and every hair follicle, glowing, soothed by the warm pink light of loving kindness. Until your entire body from toes to nose to crown is filled with this healing light. Breathing into the heart on the inhale. Breathing out from the heart on the out breath. And just take a moment without judgment or expectation to just notice how the body feels, how the mind feels right now. There's no correct way to feel. You may feel more peaceful than when we began. You may feel more agitated. It may have gone up and down throughout the practice. The body may feel more relaxed, more soft, might feel more tight. But just bringing some curiosity, some awareness to whatever is. All right, so this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about the 3 mind demons, which is one way I teach the traditional Buddhist teaching, the 3 poisons, the 3 afflictive emotions, the 3 root negative emotions or challenging emotions that happen in our minds. Now, as human beings in the West, with our vast vocabulary of emotional tones, we can think of far more than 3 emotions off the top of our heads: positive ones, neutral ones, difficult, negative, painful ones. But according to the Buddha, there are only ever 3 root difficult, challenging, unwholesome emotions, and all the rest fall into one of these 3. Now, this is a teaching that's pretty familiar to some of you, but I really want you, as I go through this teaching tonight, to be thinking of your day today. And what emotions did your mind, your experience, your so-called self cycle through at different times? Were there moments of irritation, moments of joy? Were there moments of boredom, moments of curiosity? Were there moments of selfishness? What about me? What about me? Were there moments of just real gentle generosity or thoughtfulness, where you very easily reached to do something kind for someone without thinking, without planning, and without an agenda? And I just want you to be thinking for yourself, engaging your own intellect, your own felt experience as a person in the world, about how do I experience emotion, and is it true for me? As you hear these teachings, the 3 root emotions, the 3 root negative emotions, and then the 3 antidotes. So 6, 3 on the don't want them side and 3 on the want them very much side. Do your own emotional experiences fall into these categories? All right. So let me briefly introduce, if it's new to some of you, the 3 root emotions. Hetu is the Pali word that means root. The 3 root poisonous emotions are, in English, we often call it greed or clinging, aversion or hatred or dislike, and confusion, bewilderment, lack of clear seeing. So I'll talk about them tonight as greed and anger and confusion. So why are these so important? Well, the Buddha taught suffering and the cessation of suffering. All of Buddha Dharma can be ultimately reduced down to the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path to help us cease suffering. Now, when we're in the 3 root emotions, the 3 root poisonous emotions, we are by definition suffering. You know yourself when you're angry, when you're jealous or needy or frightened about not getting something, when you're confused and believing the fact that someone was in a difficult mood today and they said something sharp towards you, that it means your friendship is over. When you're in a confused state, not seeing reality really how it is, when you're making up stories, painful stories, it hurts. We don't need an esoteric teaching system to teach us what hurts. We know what hurts. We know what hurts in the physical body, and we know what hurts in the so-called emotions. It hurts when we're selfish, when we cling, when we feel greedy, when we want something, when we're coming from a place of a perception of lack, of not enough, of we're not enough, or it's not enough, or you don't love me enough, or there won't be enough, which is fear. That's the first root poisonous emotion of tanha. That's the Pali word, or clinging, or greed, or wanting. How many times today did I, did you, did all of us have moments, or maybe even big many moments of wanting something, longing for something. Maybe we were cold and we wanted to feel warm. They don't have to be giantly dramatic. Maybe we wanted to visit a friend and then they didn't feel well and they had to cancel and we were disappointed. We were in some wanting. Doesn't mean we didn't maybe take it gracefully. Hopefully we did. But these little pains, these little hurts of wanting, what about the big pains? What about if someone you love is sick or dying or has died? The longing, the wanting them to be well, the longing, the wanting them to be here, the longing, the wanting it to be different. This is the root confusion. When we want, when we long, when we cling, we're wanting things to be different than they are. And when we want things to be different than they are, we're suffering. Because here's the news, not my news, just the news. Things are the way they are. In that moment, they are the way they are. Can they be changed? Perhaps, but not right in that moment. Maybe in the next moment, you can change them. Maybe if there's a rift between you and a friend, and this is painful, and you're clinging and wanting it to feel different, you can maybe then take action, create karma, create causes that lead to effects to influence that unwholesome feeling, that unwholesome or unfortunate circumstance, to renovate it, to be a wholesome or wanted circumstance. But the fact is, reality is reality. And if the reality is your pet or your friend or your family member has died, we can cling all we want to wanting it to be different. We can long for it to be different. We can beg, scream, rend our garments and tear out our hair and want it to be different. And we all have in our own ways at different times. Did it bring them back to life? No, of course it didn't. When we cling, we hurt. When we want things to be different than they are, we're in suffering. And this is one of the teachings the Buddha points us back to over and over and over again. And I challenge us to ask ourselves, when you find yourself unhappy, uncomfortable, in despair, just not feeling so good, wherever on the spectrum, mildly, slightly not happy to in complete and absolute devastation, you can ask yourself this really important diagnostic question. What am I clinging to? What am I wanting that I don't currently have? And many of you have heard the analogy of the hot coal. You know, the Buddha talks about if you pick up a hot coal and you hold it in your hand, what happens? Well, we all know we get burnt and it hurts like crazy. What's the wise thing to do? Well, keep hanging on and clinging tighter and wanting it to change. No, that's not the right thing to do. It, of course, leads to further and deeper and worse suffering. The only remedy when we're clinging to something that is harmful is to let go. With the coal analogy, if I let go of a hot coal and my burnt hand is still burnt, I'll still have some pain for a while, won't I? This happened to me actually on a meditation retreat 2 summers ago on Galiano. I was in solo retreat, but I was up at the Lama's house for lunch. And someone had it wasn't me, had let the kettle boil dry on the stove. It was, a stovetop kettle. And I picked up the kettle to pour the hot water for the Lama because someone in the kitchen said, oh, would you mind getting his hot water? I said, sure. Picked up the kettle, realized it was empty. And despite having a science degree, I then poured cold water into the kettle that had boiled dry. So you all know what happened. Hot metal meets cool water, steam billows out and burned the heck out of my hand. Quite a bad burn. There you go. Not paying attention. There you go. Now, I immediately, without thinking and just out of an absolute intelligent reaction, dropped the kettle, which had billows of steam that was 2nd degree burning, 3rd degree burning, I think, my hand. So I dropped it immediately. That was the wisdom part. The pouring the water in the burnt dry kettle wasn't wise at all. But the automatic intelligence of the body, when searing pain hit the thumb, was to drop it. I was still sore for quite a while. I needed medical care. It all healed beautifully. It's all fine. But this is a beautiful analogy, or in my case, not an analogy, a foolish choice on my part, to remind us that if I'd kept going, this really hurts, I'm going to hang on to the kettle. Man, this hurts. It hurts worse. Oh, poor me. Look, world, my life sucks. I am now creating extensive suffering beyond what needs to be there. Arguably what needs to be there, because this cause and effect has happened and the skin is now damaged, is some pain. Drop the hot coal. When we're clinging, Remember, I'm talking about the first of the three poisonous emotions that are the three root causes of all of our mental, emotional, and life suffering. The first one is clinging, wanting, grasping, wanting things to be different than they are, begging, longing, feeling, wanting. And we can call this the greedy demon. One of the ways I teach it when I talk about romantic relationships and I talk about couples, it applies to any relationship, friend, family, coworker, is greedy demon wants something from the other person. I want you to make me feel better. I want you to pay more attention to me. I want you to be kinder. I want you to give me a promotion. I want you to, come over and be a good neighbor and drink tea with me. When we're in wanting and we're wanting something from another person, we're in what I call, in this context, greedy demon. And our mind is seeking to feel better by wanting you to give me something or do something or say something. We've all been there, and it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts to be longing for something from someone and to be telling ourselves an incorrect story that if only they, he, she, they, them would do this thing, say this thing, remember my birthday and make a fuss of me, then I'd be happy. Would you? Maybe temporarily. Might feel wonderful if they did that thing or said that thing or remembered your birthday and made a fuss of you. These might be lovely occurrences, but will they really make you happy? Will they keep you happy forever? Of course, they don't. What if you could be happy for no reason? What if you could be content for no reason? What if no matter what the world brings us, no matter if that person said or did or remembered the thing that we wish them to remember, that we're clinging for, that we're wanting, that we're longing for, what if regardless of that, we were just fine? If our mind state was calm and loving and curious, and we thought, gee, it'd be really nice if they'd say, do remember that thing, but it's okay that they didn't. I'm still happy. I'm unfazed, as they say. Greedy demon hijacks our mind and it says, oh, Cheryl, you deserve better. Oh, Cheryl, they're such a terrible friend, or I'm not good enough, or I'll never kind of get the kind of friendship and loyalty I give. And those can be brutally painful stories. And greedy demon is lonely, and greedy demon doesn't understand that the antidote to these painful feelings of needing, of wanting, is generosity. Because what's the antidote to wanting, to selfishness, to feeling the pain of lack? Is to give, is to open, is to flow. That can be so hard to do when we're all worn out, can't it? And I'm not suggesting we neglect our emotional and physical health and give to the point of burnout. I'm not by any means indicating anything like that. But with wisdom, when we shift our mindset towards giving, toward generosity, even when we're in a state of lack, of emotional hunger, of loneliness, of sadness, even there, you all know this. If you're in a state of lack, of emotional hunger, of loneliness, of sadness, and maybe I've got various pets roaming around here, maybe your cat or your dog needs something from you. And in that moment, you just give generously a bit of attention, maybe a treat, maybe a meal, maybe a pat. You feel better. Even in the midst of your own despair, when we give from a simple act of generosity, of caring about other, we feel better. So the first of the root negative emotions, painful mind states, causes of suffering. Again, that word root is carefully chosen in the Pali language. Again, hetu, H-E-T-U, should that be of interest to you. The root is what things grow from. So if these are the three root poisonous emotions, what grows from them? Poisonous emotions. What comes from poison? Being sick, so to speak, being in pain, being in suffering. If we, all of us, inadvertently ingested some poison just now, we would want the antidote. If someone said, here's the antidote, we'd all quickly take it and feel very grateful that someone knew what the antidote was. That would neutralize the poison and we'd be okay. The antidote to clinging, wanting, greed, longing, emptiness, feeling, if only I could get this, see this, be this, find this, then I'll be happy. The antidote is generosity, not just to other people, but to ourselves. When angry demon grasps us in its talons and says, I need this, I want this, please love me, please pay attention to me. Why can't I have more money? Why can't I be smarter, taller, shorter, younger, etc.? Generosity is not just to take the action to be generous to someone else, like the example I just used, where we might do something sweet for our pet, or of course a friend or a stranger, but also to oneself. When we're in a state of pain, of suffering, because we are longing, can we bring some generosity to our own self and say, hey, this is painful. Go easy on yourself. Can you start letting go of the coal? And then can you tend to the burned hand with love, without judgment? It was your own fault. You picked the coal up, or why'd you expect them to remember your birthday anyway? They never do. Just say, ow, ow, and be kind. Go to the doctor, get the salve, get it bound, be gentle with it. Don't pick up spiky things for a while. Generosity to self as well. Because in English, we tend to think of the word generosity as I am generous toward you, or it's an outflow, which is beautiful. We all, I would think, like to think of ourselves as generous. We probably gently admire and are grateful for our own actions when they're generous. But in the Pali language, the word for generosity is dana, D-A-N-A, and it needs to be a two-way flow, to be generous and to receive generosity. So when I say the antidote to selfishness, to the first poison, to tanha, clinging, greed, is generosity, please remember you need to be generous and kind to yourself as well. Most of us are pretty poor at that part. We're better at being generous to others often than we are to ourselves. We're quite mean to ourselves. Oh, I'm being such a whiner. Oh, I'm just being such a child, which is weird that we consider that an insult. But anyway, I'm just such a loser. Why am I so needy? But you could also bring sweetness and kindness and generosity and say, right now there's a feeling of neediness. This is suffering. This is painful. Can I be kind to my own good self? That's the first root. The first demon, greedy demon, gimme, gimme, gimme. You might say the slogan of greedy demon is, what about me? What about me? Which we can laugh at, except when we're in it, it really bloody hurts, doesn't it? The second root poison is anger, aversion, hatred, or sometimes the English translations of the root word in Pali, which is dosa. Dosa. So we've got tanha, or clinging, or also loba. We've got dosa, which is anger, aversion, hatred, all of that kind of powerful negative emotion, or just slight negative emotion, like the tiniest hint of disappointment, the tiniest whisper of irritation or irritability. These are also hatred. Hatred's a big word, right? But the root is aversion. And I'm doing this with my hand, a pushing away motion, because aversion is, I don't want this. Ah, well, there you go. There's the flip side of the first one. I want this. I want something that's not here. Aversion is, I don't want something that is here. I don't want your damn face in my house. I don't want you to treat me like this. I don't want to have to go to work. I don't want this rotten headache. So it's a pushing away. It's a negation. It's a not wanting what's present. The first is wanting something that's not present. That's one of the keys to suffering, is when we want something that's not here versus being fully content with what is here. The second is not wanting. I want something that isn't here, and I don't want what is here. So in the most simple way, if your temperature in your room right now is uncomfortable, if you're too cold, the aversion part would be, I don't want to feel cold. I don't want this draft. And the clinging part would be, I'd like a blanket, or I'd like the heat to come on. It's that simple. And oh my Lord, so much of our life, so much of our felt experience, so many of our moments, minutes, and hours, not continuously, are I want this and I don't want that. And I want this and I don't want that. I want to go to the movies, but I don't want there to be all this Monday morning traffic. I want to have dinner, but I don't want to have to make it. I mean, just boom, 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 right? I want to go out, but I don't know what to wear. And I'm being a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I'm really not. It's fascinating to study the mind for 5 minutes after this talk, for an hour after this talk, for all day tomorrow, and look at how the mind cycles through wanting, not wanting, wanting, not wanting, wanting, not wanting. It's really bloody exhausting. And it's the source of suffering. So you're all very smart, and I'm sure you can guess the antidote to hatred is probably something like love, and you're quite right. The antidote to the poison of not wanting, of anger, aversion, judgment, negativity, pushing away, is loving kindness in the Pali language, metta, M-E-T-T-A, a type of love that is meant to be without attachment, which means you might love your grandchild and your best friend or your spouse, at least some of the time. And that love has also a clinging quality to it. No matter how pure it is, we love, and we also love that being probably more than other beings. I'm not saying that's a terrible thing, but I'm saying the loving kindness vibe, the loving kindness quality is an open-hearted, friendly love to all, right? So if there were 50 kindergarten kids and one of them's your grandchildren, you're going to tend to have a little extra love for your grandchild. We've all been there. We've all been there at the Christmas concert or the end of year concert in the kindergarten class, and you've got a kid, a niece, a nephew, or a grandchild in that thing. We're searching amongst the kids for ours, right? It's a very natural thing to do. And then we see their little face, we're like, oh, there he or she is. So there's some attachment. We can go deeper into that another time. It's not a terrible thing. It's a very human thing. But the quality of loving kindness that is the antidote to the aversion poison, the dosa, the not wanting, the pushing away, is a equanimity and across all beings, a love for all, not sort of a soppy, dopey, hippie love. There's nothing wrong with being soppy, dopey, or a hippie. Don't take that as an insult, but just to give it a context. So I love everything. It's really just gentle love, like the Dalai Lama. If you've ever seen him speak or seen him on TV or read a book, there's just unbiased, simple, gentle, friendly, loving feeling. It appears anyway, towards everyone. Everyone that comes in front of him gets the same warm, loving glow. Mother Teresa, some say, was the same. You might know someone who's just really, really kind to all that come and go. I experienced my grandmother a lot that way. I'm sure she had her human moments, but she was just kind and twinkly to basically almost all that came across her. The type of love that's the antidote to this aversion, this not wanting, this negativity, is a gentle, warm, loving kindness, which is also translated into English in a phrase that I think is quite helpful for us, which is loving friendliness, right? That friendly quality, just a gentle, warm, accepting, gently curious quality toward all, not just to our favorite beings. And of course, that would mean toward our enemies, towards people we don't understand, towards people whose views or politics or actions we find challenging, confusing, or worse, is to cultivate a loving heart toward all. Why would we do this? Well, probably because we'd like to be better people, but on a selfish level, and I mean that tongue in cheek, when we feel loving kindness in our heart instead of anger or irritability or irritation or aversion or grumpiness, we feel a lot better. We suffer a lot less when we can cultivate this warm, loving, friendly feeling. The Buddha taught suffering and the cessation of suffering. When we're in a state of clinging and wanting, we suffer, even mildly, like we feel vaguely not so well. And when we're in a state of generosity and gentle, kind friendliness, we suffer way less. You know this. You know, when you're in a natural state of feeling generous and kind, you feel good, don't you? Of course. It's a lovely way to feel. There's not mental, emotional suffering when we're gently, kindly kind, when we're spontaneously, easily generous to self and others. We are in a good state. We're not suffering. We're not burnt by the coal or the steam from the dry kettle. We're in ease. And this can even help when we are grasping in coal, because it can help us remember how much this hurts and to let it go, and that to gently and tenderly, as I said earlier, care for the wound. Care for the wound. Not with recrimination, not with judgment, not with, oh, I'm so stupid, how could I have done that again? Or how could I have let them fool me and cheat me out of my money? Well, We make mistakes, we do our best with what we have at the time, and maybe we learn and we choose a bit differently in the future, or we analyze things a bit differently in the future. As one of my friends used to say, and some of you have heard me quote this because I find it to be a useful quote, he said, you know, Cheryl, we're all just bozos on this bus trying to get there the best way we can. And he meant it as a very kind thing, that we're so awfully hard on ourselves when we make mistakes. And we should have some regret when we make mistakes that were unwholesome. But being hard on ourselves, hating ourselves, beating ourselves up, not very useful. Having regret looking at our action or our words or our thoughts that weren't wholesome, that weren't helpful, that weren't kind, that weren't generous is a learning experience that can be quite useful. But not when it comes with, I'm such a terrible person. It's more like, okay, I can do better. What can I learn from this? How can I move forward with more kindness and more grace? So the second, poison. Don't forget, poison's a heavy word. That's the translation of the word the Buddha used. And it's really important that if someone very wise who studied the mind to that level, that became awakened, that was able to live in the world allegedly without mental, emotional suffering, without these three root poisons, I'm very curious to develop the techniques that he discovered through his own felt experience and taught until his death, to say, if you don't want mental, emotional suffering, watch out for these three poisons and apply the antidotes. So you're going to watch out for the, I don't know, hundreds of times a day, thousands of times a day, where we have a thought or an emotional response or a moment of selfishness, of wanting it to be different, of wanting something. When we have a thought, a moment or more of an aversion and anger and irritability, of pushing away. And of the third poison, which, yes, I haven't mentioned yet. The third poison is variously translated as confusion, as bewilderment, as ignorance is the more common English translation of the Pali word moha, M-O-H-A. Bewildered about what? Confused about what? Ignorant about what? Ignorant, confused, bewildered about the nature of reality. And this gets a bit bigger of an explanation, because ultimately, almost everything we believe will make us happy won't. It might make us feel good or make us happy in the short term. Finding a wonderful partner, moving into a home you really enjoy, adopting a beautiful cat, having a delicious piece of chocolate, having the sun come out on a May long weekend for the first time in years. These things, we certainly might experience happiness. That's great. That's wonderful. But the fundamental confusion, bewilderment, or ignorance is when we believe we need things to go well, or we need things to be pleasant, or we need things to go the way we want them to go in order to be happy. Here's the subtle difference, or rather big difference here. If I, Cheryl, am happy when the sun comes out and I'm sad when it rains, well, I should probably move somewhere other than the Pacific Northwest, first of all. But secondly, hear the fundamental confusion in that, because it says that I, Cheryl, can only feel good, be happy, be free from suffering when the outer circumstances are right. So when the weather's favorable, I'll be in a good mood, or I'll be happy, or I won't suffer. When the weather's unfavorable, I'll be miserable or despairing or sad or blue. Holy moly, is that ever a dangerous way to live your life? Because it literally means we need outer circumstances, most of which we can't control. I don't know about you, but I sure don't control the weather on Vancouver Island or anywhere else. And if our happiness, our well-being, our peace of mind, our open heart are predicated upon things we can't control that are going to change, it means we're little bobbing ducks that have been released on a very wild ride down a very turbulent river. And we get thrown up and we fall down and we get tossed off to the side and someone drop kicks us back into the water. Does that feel familiar? This is the felt experience at times, if not a lot of the time, of our actual life, where it feels like I was in such a good mood and then this thing happened that I couldn't control. My car broke down, or I got to work late and the boss chewed me out, or I fell down and broke my arm, or up to the biggest losses, the biggest tragedies, diagnoses, death, major betrayal by a loved one. this thing I can't control happened, and now I'm heartbroken, and now I'm grieving, and now I'm in despair. Oh, this good thing that I can't entirely control happened. I got a promotion. Someone said they love me and want to be my new partner. I found a bag of gold under my bed. Yay, I'm happy now. But it's so vulnerable. It's so fragile when our mental, emotional well-being, when our state of mind is dependent on outer circumstances we can't control, we're doomed. We're going to go up and down for the rest of our life. I mean, I don't know about you folks, although I kind of do. Have you ever been able to micromanage your life, your relationships, your roommates, your neighbors, your cats, your dogs, your physical health, your body, the wrinkles on your face, the food in your fridge, the mold that is or isn't growing outside on the walls? Have you ever been able to micromanage each and everything in your life to where it was all exactly perfect? I highly doubt it, but let's be good scientists and say there's a 0.0001% chance that somebody watching or hearing this has at times micromanaged every single part of their life. The shower water is always the exact temperature you love. Goldilocks to everything. Everything's perfect. I doubt it, but let's say one or two of you did because you're like super wizard people. Did it last forever? When you got everything just so, how long did it last? 30 seconds? 30 minutes? 30 days? No way, but let's say 30 days. But it didn't last forever, did it? It can't. Everything falls apart. Everything that's built it will be unbuilt. Everything that's compound will fall apart. This is basic fundamental science, physics, etc. Everything that's born will die. To every season, turn. Every leaf that buds and flowers will fall off the tree. There's no way, no matter how big of a control freak you are, and I'm a pretty big control freak, no matter how tightly you control everything and everyone around you, you can't line all those ducks up in a row and everything's perfect. We're going to a couple of weddings this summer. We've got my young sister and a niece and a nephew are all getting married at different times this summer. Is anybody going to have a perfect wedding day? That depends. For sure, their wedding isn't going to all come off without a hitch. The cake's going to get dropped by the caterer, or there's going to be wasps at the picnic, or it'll rain when it was supposed to be sunny, or be too hot when it was supposed to be cool. But they can have a perfect wedding if this is good. They can have a perfect wedding if their mind is happy. And drive by. This is Ziggy. They can be absolutely happy if they don't count on external circumstances to make it a perfect wedding day. I will tell a story of a wedding I was at, about 20 years ago. It was to a cousin of mine who I didn't see very often, but we were invited to the wedding, which was very nice. It was on I think mid-August day here on Vancouver Island. And we'd had probably about 60 or 65 days of straight blazing sunshine at that point. You know where this is going. They got married in Lake Cowichan on the lake at the grandfather's house, which had a yard down to the lake. They had a small dock there. And it started to pour that morning, like torrential pouring. It had been absolute radiant sunshine for 2 months. The next day it went back to radiant sunshine for another month. On the wedding day, it was raining so hard. They gave us all those giant golf umbrellas, and we were in, dresses and girly shoes, standing on the now soaking wet grass and sinking into the grass. It was raining so hard that the rain was hitting the lawn and splashing up and getting all of our clothes wet. It was hilarious. And we all had only one concern. And the concern was, is the bride going to be super upset, and the groom for that matter, but particularly the bride, super upset that her perfect day was turning out to not be what it was meant to be and had been so carefully planned? And so the bride was going to ride in on a boat, on her granddad's boat, with granddad at the captain's chair, and pull up at the dock, and she was going to get out onto the dock and then walk up to her waiting groom, my cousin. And we kind of held our breath as the boat approached, that little boat. And Granddad got out and put out his arm. And here she's in her gown with her giant golf umbrella, beautiful white mermaid gown down to her ankles. And she gets out, and we all roared with laughter because on her feet, she had a giant pair of like daisy printed rubber boots. And we thought, perfect. Right in that moment, we knew she was fine with the rain. She traded her fancy white shoes for happy daisy rubber boots, and was happy as could be. She had a perfect wedding day because her mind didn't rely on the external circumstances to make her happy. It's a little regular example. You've all done it too, where things have all gone wrong, but you've had a good day or a good birthday or a good presentation, even if the tech, didn't work and some person sat in the back glowering at you all the whole time, rolling their eyes and muttering under their breath. If your mind was right, you went, oh, that's their deal. And you had a great presentation at work. That third poison, that of confusion or delusion, is where we mistakenly believe. It means a lot of things, but for today's talk, when we mistakenly believe, if only we get all the external circumstances right, then we'll be happy. What's the antidote to being confused? Being clear, having wisdom, seeing things the way they really are. And when we are clear, we see that it doesn't matter if it pours like crazy. If all your guests are wet and cold and soaking wet from the knees down, it doesn't matter if you had to throw away the white shoes that you probably spent months choosing and trying on and put on a pair of big old flowered rubber boots. What matters is that your mind is okay, that your mind is happy, that your mind accepts that into every life some rain must fall, and it's what you do about the rain that matters. Do you sit in the corner and cry and feel sorry for yourself and my wedding day was ruined? Or do you pull on a pair of flowery boots and climb out of that boat with the biggest smile and walk into the arms of the person you love? Right. See, it doesn't matter, says Ziggy, the apparently very enlightened cat. I can be happy anywhere. Yes, I'm happy in a lap, but I'm also happy on the floor. I'm also happy in the cat tree, and so on and so on. No, he's not enlightened. He's not at all happy if he doesn't get food on time. He wants his circumstances to be the way he wants them to be. But there you go. The third poison is where we are confused about what actually is the root of suffering. The root of suffering is not seeing things the way they are. And the way they are is everything changes. Some of it very quickly, some of it slowly. Nothing lasts forever. Nothing can be perfect. When it's perfect for a second or a minute or 5, it'll change. And when we forget that, we suffer. When we get bewildered or confused, when we forget that, oh yeah, no matter how hard I try to control everything, I can't have it be great all the time. I can't make the world stand in line and be perfect for me. But there's such good news here, because the antidote to that confusion is wisdom, is seeing things the way they are, is accepting that things will always change. And when we accept the truth of change, even the most heartbreaking changes, the cancer diagnoses, the loss of a loved one, a tragic car accident that takes the life of someone far too young, and so on, even these gut-wrenchingly painful changes, when we bring some equanimity and some peacefulness, some wisdom to it, when we remind ourselves, as much as we don't want this aversion, as much as we want it to be different, clinging, this is the way it is. The person is gone. This is sad. But when we accept the truth of that reality, it eases the pain some, it reduces the suffering some. So when we try to Goldilocks life, when we try to get everything just so, not too soft, not too hard, just right, not too hot, not too cold, just right, and so on, we're in a constant search for comfort, which is a pretty good definition of most of our lives. We're in a constant search to feel better. We're in a constant search. You're laying here, it's a beautiful day, you're just happy, you're reading a wonderful book, and you're like, it'd be a little bit better if I only had a cup of tea. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I've had more than one gorgeous cup of tea today myself. Please take the idea behind it. What I'm pointing to is we're rarely content with the way things are for very long. The little mind starts seeking something else, something to augment. Oh, that tea was great. And now maybe just a little square of chocolate. Or, oh, it's such a nice day, but maybe I'll flip on the TV. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of these actions. These actions in themselves don't lead to suffering. What leads to suffering is where we mistakenly forget that when we're chasing objects, when we're chasing experiences, when we're trying to create circumstances that we believe make us happy, which may make us happy for a few minutes or longer, we're stuck on the endless highway of happiness being just around the corner. When we get this, when we do that, when this thing goes away, when my headache stops, then I'll be happy. Buddha Dharma, to some degree, is about dissolving all of that and being happy right here, right now, in this instant, no matter what's happening, no matter what's not happening, no matter if things are the way we desire them to be, no matter if they're very much ways we don't desire them to be. I don't know, you open the door and your house was completely overrun with thousands of cockroaches today. That's probably not what you desire, but you can be very happy as you gradually shovel and don't harm the cockroaches and drive them miles away and let them go into a cockroach paradise. Or you can be miserable and upset, and then you can go on Facebook and rant about it. That'll help. It won't help. Anyway, pet peeve. Yes, this happened and my life sucks. Well, go talk about it all over Facebook. That'll make you feel better. Maybe talk to a friend if you're having a frustrating, upsetting, or difficult time. That can be very wholesome. Speak to a wise friend. Speak to a friend that can say, gosh, I'm really sorry. That sounds like it was really rough. Is there one thing that happened today that was good, that was positive? Yeah, I did see a beautiful flower in the yard. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Remember that that is also true. The three poisonous emotions: wanting, clinging, desiring, longing, wanting things to be different than they are. Hey, buddy. The next one is aversion, anger, not wanting, pushing away. And the third is confusion or bewilderment, where we forget the truth of reality, that everything changes, this too will end. And the good news in there, my friends, is everything ends, which means the despair will also come to a conclusion and something will shift. And then happiness or contentment or some healing or some recovery will happen. We don't stay in anything forever. So in our darkest hours, if we can at least remind ourselves intellectually that somewhere at the end of this tunnel, there is a small flickering light. And at some point, this darkness, this grief, this loss, this despair will shift. And at some point, we will feel some true happiness, maybe with a drive-by of a fuzzy kitten, maybe seeing that beautiful one flower poking up through the debris or the dead leaves in the yard, maybe just turning on the TV and there's a nature program and you see a seal hauling itself up on a rock to dry itself off. That moment of grace, that moment of happiness. The bewilderment is when we think, I'll never be happy again. I don't know how to be happy. It'll never work. When happiness is always present. You've heard me use this analogy a lot. It's used a lot in the teachings of Dharma and elsewhere. The sun is always shining. So here on Vancouver Island, we've had a lot of rain this spring, more than typical. And it's been the sky has seemed very gray, very dark, a lot of rain pouring down. And we're like, oh, we just wish the sun would come out, which of course is scientifically incorrect. The sun's out all the time. If it wasn't, the planet will die. It'll be the end of us. And that might happen one day. But at this time, the sun is always shining consistently and the same. Well, not consistently, I mean, little bits fall off, etc. But it's always shining. In the darkest of night, when the planet's tilted such that we're away from the sun, it feels like the sun is set. It hasn't. The planet's rotated. In the rain and the darkness and the socked in cloud cover, it feels like the sun is gone. It's not, it's up there. There's simply a barrier between us and it. The clouds, the weather, or the rotation of the planet, that the sun isn't visible or experienced doesn't mean the sun's not there. This is very good news because it's the same for happiness, for contentment, for peace of mind. It's always present. That may seem like a madness that I said that. Well, it's certainly not present when I'm consumed in anger. It's certainly not present when I'm devastated by heartache. It's certainly not present when someone I love is suddenly killed in a car accident. How could you say happiness is always present? But like the sun, When we're caught in the weather of grief, of loss, of change, we lose contact with the sun. We think the sun has set or is no longer present or is covered up or won't come. We're waiting for the sun to come back. The happiness, the grace, and the peacefulness of mind is always present. And that's one of the reasons meditation can be helpful. It's one of the reasons why listening to Dharma can be helpful, is that it reminds us, even if we don't experience the sun, even if it's 3 a.m. in the winter on Vancouver Island, where there ain't no sun present anywhere that we can see or experience, we can still know that it's there. We can know that that peaceful, happy mind is there. That sense of grace is there. Even if we're not experiencing it directly with our senses right now, it's there. And as we meditate, we may become better at times of dissolving the clouds. And let's take a small example that's a great place to start. When you feel a little bit irritated or irritable, you're not angry, you're not miserable, you're having a pretty good day, but you're just a little bit annoyed about something, vaguely, 1 out of 10. Practice closing your eyes and seeing if you can dissolve the clouds, seeing if you can dissolve that sense of irritability. You can go to your body, you can try to find where it is in the body. Is it a tightness in your chest? Is it a tension in your shoulders? And maybe send some warm pink light, as we did off the top. Send some loving kindness, as we did off the top. Allow that tightness to soften as we practice off the top. And you may find, to your great delight, I hope, that the irritability, that little bit of irritation, melts away, like the clouds did a few times today when it got quite cloudy. And then I looked up next and the clouds had all dissolved and it was bright and sunny again. This is incredibly awakening practice. This is incredibly wise practice. When we don't believe the emotional mind states, we see them for what they actually are. The antidote to confusion, the third poison, confused demon, controlling demon, the demon that tries to micromanage everything so we'll be happy. The antidote is clear seeing, wisdom, letting go, accepting what is, and knowing, even when we don't experience it, that under this consternated emotional weather state of the mind, if we're having an unpleasant emotion, there's the sun shining. So stop hanging on to the coal, stop throwing the coal across the room in a tantrum, stop trying to control everything so there's never any hot coals around you, and say, in this moment, everything is absolutely okay. That's one variation of wisdom, one variation of the antidote to confusion or bewilderment or ignorance. And that is what I would like to share this evening. We'll sit together for just a couple of moments to close the evening, and then I'll ring the bell with thanks again to Neil for the tech, to Shelley, who kindly went to the Rotary House to leave a note in case anyone found their way there for the in-person class we thought we'd be having. Thanks to Ziggy the kitten for some comic relief, and to all beings. We'll sit together and just for a few moments, replenishing, reviving that sense of that warm pink light in the heart. Just breathing into the light on the in-breath. Breathing out from the light on the exhale. Breathing into the sun in the heart, always present. Knowing that the perfect day is a choice of the mind, whether to put on flower printed red rubber boots and splash through the pouring rain to do your wedding vows, or whether to bemoan that it was supposed to be sunny and the weather said it would be sunny and everything's ruined. This is a choice. It may not feel like a choice, but it's a choice. Suffering and the cessation of suffering. This is what the Buddha taught. And we'll close with what's called a dedication of merit, where we remind ourselves with that antidote of generosity that we practice or listen or contemplate or muse over these teachings, not just for ourselves, although that's a wonderful motivation, is to have a clearer mind and a happier heart, but also ultimately for all beings, those we know, those we don't know. So we say some variation of I aspire to awaken fully and completely for the benefit of all beings. For the benefit of all beings, may there be generosity where there used to be selfishness. May there be loving friendliness where there used to be anger or aversion. And may there be wisdom and clarity and the acceptance of the truth of the way things are, where there used to be bewildered confusion. Thank you so much for your kind attention. And I look forward to being with you soon. We'll send out a newsletter next week announcing some more dates in June to gather. And from a purring kitten to you, I wish you a beautiful, fruitful, sunshine-filled rest of your evening, because that sun is always shining. Kim, I have missed you terribly. How nice to see you in the chat box. And for now, we bid you adieu, and we'll gather again very soon. As I say, we'll send out word next week. Bye for now.